Now, growing up, I had really strict parents, and going to sleepovers was one thing I was never actually really allowed to do. You guys are probably wondering why, and if you guys have really cool parents that let you go sleep at anyone's house, well, y'all kind of lucky. But back then, going to sleepovers was something that really popular kids always ended up going and doing, and I was always jealous. I always thought to myself, Mom, Dad, why can't I go to a sleepover like everyone else is? Baba, do you know who they are? Do you know what their family does for work? Do you know who they live with? No, but I mean, I'll figure it out and text you guys when I get to the sleepover was always my excuse. I always told them I would update them and everything, but my parents always thought it's better never to risk it. Until one day. I remember my grade 9 year. At this point, I'm like hitting high school. You know, I'm a cool kid, and you know, I started becoming more popular in the popularity chain. But still, to this day in grade 9, I still never actually ended up going on a sleepover until this one day. The one day where I ended up going to my science classroom. I sat down next to my buddy, and my friend looks at me saying, Yo, Bubba, I was just wondering, bro, do you want to come over and stay the night at my place tonight? Yeah, sure. Wait, like sleepover? Bro, we're in high school. No one says sleepover anymore. Oh, nah, I knew that. I was just like, you know, wondering because, you know, I always go to sleepovers and stuff. Well, yeah, don't you like always do the duels tango with girls? Like, I would thought that, you know, you go to sleepovers all the time. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, piece of cake. But obviously, I didn't tell him the truth that I never actually ended up going on a sleepover at this time and age because, well, I didn't want to seem like a loser that I never went to a sleepover. Anyways, after he asked me, he ended up standing up and leaving the classroom. And that's when I started to worry, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to a sleepover tonight. I'm going to a sleepover tonight. How am I going to tell my parents that I'm going to a sleepover tonight? Is what clicked in my mind. Until I realized that I could totally just do the main thing that most teenagers do at this time and age, and that's lie. I remember I went to my parents' room after school that day, and I ended up seeing them both sitting on the bed after their nice nap. I don't know why my parents always took naps when I was in high school, especially when I came home from school. I have really no idea why, unless they weren't napping. Wait a second. What if they weren't napping? Okay, never mind. Going on with the story. Sorry, that sounded weird. But like I was saying, I remember I walked in there. I'm like, hey, Mom, Dad, today I got a really important thing happening at school today. What, Baba? What's going on? Is what my mom said. And that's when I told my mom and dad, Mom, Dad, there's a school sleep-in tonight, and it's actually worth 30% of our grade for high school. You have to sleep in the school for high school? What? What is this new generation coming up with? I don't know, honey, but I don't think this is right. Are you sure, Baba? Yeah, Mom, Dad, I'm sure, and I gotta go to the school sleep-in tonight, so if it's cool you drop me off, that'll mean a lot to me. Okay, Baba, if you say so, just be safe, okay? Yeah, of course, I'll update you. Okay, we trust you in school. Which is crazy to think about, because, like, what kind of parent trusts you sleeping inside a school, but not trusting you sleeping at a friend's house? Like, I know it's really different, and parents, if you guys do watch me, maybe you guys can, you know, explain to me how this works, but overall, I was okay with this, and I'm like, okay, you know what? It works out. Let's see how it goes. So I remember I went to my room and I started packing all the things I needed for a sleepover. Since I never had one, I didn't really know what to pack. Like, I ended up packing like a pillow, a blanket, because I didn't know if, you know, he had any. I ended up also packing like my underwear, my socks, and basically like a change of clothes. I thought that was more than enough until my mom and dad ended up coming into my room with a whole backpack already prepared for my school sleep-in, or my school sleep-in, I should say. I remember I looked at them and I'm like, Mom, Dad, why'd you guys pack for me? Baba, you need to make sure you have toothbrush, toothpaste, a knife, protection, and on top of that, a lot of important things. Wait, did you just say a knife and protection? Baba, they're the same thing. We're not giving you protection. Like for, you know, the duels tango. No, I get that, but I'm not bringing a knife, Mom. You don't know what happens at school. You never know nowadays. Which, to be fair, like, ever since I moved to America, I understand that, like, you know, school's dangerous. You know, I'm not gonna say it. You know, I'm not gonna be the guy to say it, but there are the school pows that happen. You know, bumped up kicks, better run. If you know what I'm saying, then it makes sense. But overall, like, I didn't think it should go to that extreme, especially since at that time, I was in Canada. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember my parents ended up giving me this bag, and I just took it because I didn't want them questioning any more about my school sleep-in, and they ended up driving me to school. When I got there, the school lights were totally off and the parking lot was like silent, and I remember my parents look at me and they're like, are you sure the school sleep-in's today? Yeah, no, 100% it is. Well, Baba, why is there no one here? There's not even a car in the parking lot. The teachers are gonna be like parking behind the school, so like, you know, it's supposed to make the school look empty to not make it targeted. That's very smart of your school, Baba. Remind me to call your school and say good job. Yeah, yeah, no problem. Just leave me right here. Okay, Baba, be safe. My parents ended up dropping me off, and then they ended up driving away. And at that moment, I basically stood at my school at like 9 at night with no one around, and basically realizing that it was kind of dumb what I did. But at the same time, it wasn't fully dumb, because I ended up calling my buddy, and he ended up riding his BMX bike over to me, and me and him started walking back to his place. When we walked over to his place, he kept asking me questions like, dude, like, why'd you like not bring your bike? And also, why'd you also come to the school? Just tell your parents to drop you off at my place. Yeah, bro, that's not allowed, is what I told him. He's like, what do you mean? I mean, I don't know. They said this was the closest they could drop me off, so, you know, it just makes sense. I don't know. I tried to play it off as cool, so, you know, he wouldn't suspect any questions. In a way, I guess I was lying to a lot of people at this moment, which is not my brightest suit, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it made me, you know, stay cool and popular, so I wasn't complaining. And I remember once we got to his place, one thing I realized is that many people live very different ways. What do I mean by this? It's maybe because I'm Persian, or, you know, half Persian, I should say. But when I enter inside a home, I expect, you know, for me to take off my shoes. I expect for me to walk in and the place is all nice and clean. And I expect, you know, a nice friendly greeting. When I walked into my buddy's house that was white, I walk in there and he walks in with his shoes that were just, you know, walking through the mud back home from when we were walking from my school. And then on top of that, as we continue walking, I see his parents just look at me as if I'm some like homeless kid, and they just leave. It's like they don't even care I existed. And I was looking at my buddy and I'm like, yo, bro, is like, your parents cool with me being here tonight? Oh yeah, don't worry, man. They're cool. They're just, you know, they're just being parents. What do you mean just being parents? If it was my parents and I invited someone over, my parents are bringing them snacks. My parents are making them their bed. My parents are making sure that the floors are clean. Like, my parents make me clean my room when I have guests over. Like, my parents make me clean my room when they bring friends over, even though they never end up entering my room. Like, it makes no sense. But at the same time, though, you know, at the end of the day, I get it. You know, many cultures do different things to, I guess, their homes over time. But I guess, I don't know. I never expected the white culture to be so bland. After that weird interaction, I remember I looked over at my friend, and me and him, we ended up going to his room. We started playing video games. We started playing video games until it got really late at night. I want to say it became like 11 at night, and things started to get a little weird. What do I mean weird? Well, he started asking me weird questions like about girls and stuff, and obviously I told him all my answers, like, oh yeah, this girl's cute. Yeah, her cherries are bigger than, you know, our teachers. You know, like, we started like talking about like basic girl stuff. I don't know, guys, do you guys have like basic girl talk when you like talk with like your friends and stuff? I don't know if it's normal. I guess for me it was, since I was like known as a player back, especially when I was in high school. But anyways, from there, one thing led to another, and my buddy ends up hearing a rock hit the window. I end up looking at him and I'm like, yo, like, what was that, Bubba? They're here. Wait, what do you mean? Who's here? And I end up looking out the window and I realized it was two girls. And at this moment, I got confused. At this moment, I realized that my buddy apparently invited two girls that were mid, by the way. They were like super mid-tier girls. Like, they were pretty ugly, but we're gonna make them beautiful in this video with the beautiful animation characters we have, but not the point. My buddy ends up bringing two mid girls to his house, and we sneak them through the window. How do we sneak them through the window? Well, luckily my buddy like lived on like this like balcony kind of thing. So he ended up basically like pulling each one of those girls up through the window. And when they got through the window, I remember they both were talking to him because they didn't know me yet. I was just some random brown guy inside a white household. But anyways, these two girls were like, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh my goodness, how you guys doing? What you guys up to, you know? And I'm just like standing there next to my buddy, and I'm like, you know, awkwardly not saying anything because, well, I thought this was gonna be a guy's night, but apparently he just brought me over to wingman, and not only just wingman, but to also take the fridge that was with the snack, which, to be fair, I don't know which one was the snack, but we'll just pretend there was one. And my buddy's like, oh, this is my friend Bubba, you know, he goes to my school, he's in my science class, he's pretty cool. Hi, how you guys doing? Is what I said, really awkwardly. And then one thing led to another. I guess this girl was like trying to make her friend come over to me so she can hang out with my buddy. And to be fair, my buddy was much as a player as I was. To be honest, I learned a lot of my playing skills from him, until one thing led to another. My buddy's like, oh my goodness, guys, we should watch a movie. Okay, cool, yeah, let's watch a movie. So we all sit on his bed, trying to be as quiet as possible because we didn't know if his parents were still up. And it got to the point where we started like laying down on the bed, not knowing what movie to watch, until this girl that was next to me that was pretty ugly ends up saying, oh, we should watch like, oh my God, we should watch like Lord of the Rings. You want to watch Lord of the Rings? You want to watch a 4-hour freaking movie? Which I was already freaking out at this point, but then the girl that was her friend ends up saying, let's watch all of the Lord of the Ring movies. That's such a good idea. At this point, I'm baffled, but my buddy, he, he's a major, like, I guess player, but kind of pulled a simp card because he ends up saying, oh yeah, like we can so do that 100%. And he ends up putting the Lord of the Rings on. Me, I get super tired, especially when I watch movies. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I want to go to bed or I'm laying in bed about to sleep, I watch movies. I watch movies so I can, like, pass out to like a hearing voice. It's kind of like white noise. Some people sleep to white noise. I sleep to movies. So as we're watching this, Lord of the Rings film, I'm like slowly like passing out and my head's like slowly dropping. And then these girls are like, slowly like getting more excited about this film, even though they're still just walking through the woods and there's a giant bearded white guy. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, comment down below. But yeah, it just got really annoying. But I think over time, as the movie continued, I slowly started to pass out. I was passing out nice and slow until it really hit me. What hit me? Well, this girl's peach, I should say, ends up hitting my eggplant. And then she thought it was a good idea for her hand to reach down there and grab my eggplant. I'm not joking. I thought this was crazy. I woke up to her squeezing my soft eggplant and I'm like, yo, like what's going on? I woke up in a scare and all I see is that her friend and my buddy were passed out and she just was like still wide awake and she had her phone out filming what she was doing. At that moment, I got up and I actually just left. I'm not joking. I walked 15 minutes outside in the dark at 4 a.m. and went home. When I got home, my parents were like wondering how I got home and were worried about me, but that's not even the worst part. Because what ends up happening is the next day when I got to school, my buddy comes up to me when we're in the middle of science class, all super upset. And he's like, dude, you do realize what you did, right? No. What did I do? Dude, when you left my place, the alarm went off and my parents found out I brought 2 girls over. Thanks for getting me grounded, dummy. Oh, sorry, dude. My bad. Yeah, let's just say after that day, he didn't really hang out with me until I became more popular in grade 10 than him. But overall, I don't know. Sleepovers are really weird, especially when you make it a girl and boy sleepover. But if you guys enjoyed this story, then click on one of the stories on screen right now so you guys can watch more of these insane story times. And yeah, subscribe.